And yes, that buzz does persist throughout the entire game audio, I don't know why. Either way, hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Mario is Missing. Remember how during Dino Wars I mentioned we all had those games we played a lot as kids and didn't realize were bad until we grew up? Mario is Missing is another one of those. This was also the only entertainment game I had as a kid. And getting right on into it, welcome to our first world where we're getting introduced to basically everything the game has to offer. That bag I just picked up is an artifact. More on what those are in a moment. Let's talk to this guy. Where am I? This city was built on the Seven Hills in 753 BC, was home to Caesar. And the thing we just picked up is a spear that belongs in an arena. We'll talk about more what that is in a moment. First off, let's check out what we got on the pause screen after I take care of these two Koopas. We have the artifact menu, which allows you to select which one of the three you have. The computer stores hints. Each of the 5 NPCs in any given town has hints towards the artifacts you pick up and your location. And those will come in handy with something later on. Globulator we'll check out later. The city map is probably the most important function because it shows you a basic map of the area as well as where every Koopa Troopa is. There are 3 artifacts, and where they are is not... It's weird. I think it's partial and random, but not entirely. It's generally like one of 2 or 3 Koopas. And thus, one of the largest things about Mario is Missing that causes the game to go on is trying to find the 3 artifacts per screen. More on that in a moment. What we just passed there is an information center. That is where you pass in each of the artifacts. However, not all of them are always located. They're not usually located near their information center, and the information center itself is where you can get an extra hint towards the item itself. That's also where we have to return to them eventually, and we'll get more into that in a moment. The last thing, the photograph section, I accidentally used that later on. Essentially, when you complete a level, you get a picture of the locations in the city that you're in. Now, in terms of this game's history, well, first off, let me go over one more thing. There are pipes in each world as well, generally 2 sets of 2, and they'll just warp you between them as usual. This game was developed by Radical Entertainment Incorporated, I believe it is. And that's a company that's actually done some games I'm aware of. For instance, they made both of the prototype games, as well as both of the Tattoo Crash games, which are a hit or miss. I think the second one's real bad. Crash Tag Team Racing, Simpsons Hit and Run, as well as Road Rage. The Independence Day game on PlayStation, which, oh boy. I think they made that 3D Metroidvania-like game, The Divide, on PlayStation. And then we get to the infamous stuff. Because these guys are also responsible for Bebe's Kids on the Super Nintendo, Beavis and Butthead on Game Gear, Mario's Time Machine, Wayne's World on Super Nintendo, Terminator on NES, and possibly the most infamous one for me, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends on Super Nintendo and Game Boy. The Game Boy game is the actual worst game I have ever played. Either way, now we have all 3 artifacts for the specific city, so now we need to head to the information centers around here. It doesn't matter which order you take them on in. I think there's maybe a bonus for doing something right the first time, but we'll get more into that in a moment. Let's head on over to our first one, which should be in this next street to my left. By the way, the way you go between screens like that, you just press up or down on the appropriate street. You can't actually go up or down between screens on the actual street, because it just won't let you. This is the Sistine Chapel. Let's see why it's closed. The Sistine Chapel ceiling was stolen in 1508. Pope Julius II, commissioned the artist, Michelangelo, blah, 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 blah. People familiar with history probably already know this already. Reward of 900, bonus 2400. I forget exactly what the bonuses even mean. You get the rewards no matter what, though. let's select the Sistine Chapel ceiling, which it already is, and try to pass it into Peach here. With every artifact, you need to answer a 2 to 3 question quiz about the artifact you're trying to pass in. For instance, in this case, what does Sistine mean in Latin is 6, and who painted it was Michelangelo. In which case, you get it and you can head into the thing to actually see one of the pictures you got. You get all 3 of the pictures at the end of the level no matter what, though. And honestly, they're pretty good sprite work. But this is the bigger issue with Mario is Missing. It's an edutainment game, and thus there's going to be a lot of repetition. I'll get into how I'm going to be handling the later stages when we get there. And here's our next thing. The Trevi Fountain's been closed because apparently the coins were stolen, and we have those in our inventory as usual. When it comes to the questions the information centers can ask you, they are set somewhat. There's usually like 2 or 3 per that they can select from. Trevi is the biggest fountain, and people throw their coins in, and they usually get a blessing to return to Rome, or some shit like that. And now we have the Gladiator Spewers. I need to head down 2 streets to the right. You will find yourself entering the city map fairly often, unless you make your own map. Just because it's a very convenient function, especially for finding the Koopa Troopas. Though I wish going through the streets could be a bit faster. Colosseum Spear was stolen, so yeah, that's the first one we heard about. Most of the time, I'm usually able to answer these questions correctly, just based off my knowledge from my own schooling stuff, at least nowadays, but it can actually be kind of tricky when you're a kid, so if, say, for some reason you're having your child play this, for some reason, try and have them talk to the actual people around, because that can actually help you around with hints. However, once we get all 3 artifacts passed in, that's not quite it, because we need to head to the Globulator and guide Yoshi to our location based off the information either from the artifacts itself or the people that in the town you talk to. Because we need to get that Pokey out of the blue pipe, because you can only exit a town, through a blue pipe. And once you get Yoshi to where we are, which is Rome, Italy, we can head down the blue pipe and finish the world, or at least the level. There are 15 total cities in this game you're going to be visiting across 3 floors, so you have a good amount of artifacts ahead of you. Oh, and hey, Ludwig's there for some reason. And now it's time for us to enter our second city, and now we're going to be going into how I'm going to be handling all future cities in this game. First off, let's just check out the city map so we can take a good look of what kind of city we're looking at this time around. Wow, that's really windy. You can also get a good grasp of what city you're in just based on the city map, because usually they have big landmarks within it. However, what we're looking at now is actually the way I'm going to be handling every single city from here on out. When it comes to the Koopa artifact collection, I'm going to be speeding up the entire section of me doing that. And then, when we actually get to the point where I'm going around passing in artifacts, I'm going to be jump cutting to each individual center, or at least me entering the screen they're on, just to save some time when it comes to that. Because otherwise, this about hour-long playthrough somewhere in that range would probably be closer to 3 or 4, and honestly, I don't want to do like 9 parts of Mario is Missing. No. One thing I should mention, though, is that when it's not buzzing, this game's soundtrack actually isn't that bad. It's all just remixes of the main Mario theme, with added instruments and motifs to make it resemble more a theme you might hear stereotypically in that region. For instance, this one's very Asian sounding. Why is the Temple of Heaven closed today? The Hall of Good Harvest was stolen. Gee, I wonder where we are, if the Temple of Heaven's there. Let's answer some questions. Wow, yeah, that was pretty easy. I should mention that if you get one of the questions wrong, you're in total booted out of that quiz, and you have to try again. However, Peach won't let you try again automatically. You have to move around a bit first. Generally, I'd say moving 2-ish screens away and coming back is enough. Great Wall of China? Oh, gee, I wonder what city we're in then. It's roughly that long, and was built around then. Usually, if you're someone like me who's finished high school and is a good amount into college, you can probably get through this game just based off rudimentary knowledge you've learned along the way. But for kids, this is actually kind of a challenging game. I had a lot of trouble with it. Though my mom was very impressed when I beat this because she didn't think anyone would put the effort in. I still don't know why my brother bought this game all the years back, probably because he thought it'd be a Mario platformer. Oh, he was so wrong. And let's see, now we need to return the gate to the Forbidden City. Let's see, Forbidden City, let's return it. Have Palace Museum, and that guy. Thus, the game's gonna get a lot repetitive from here on out. But we actually need to bring Yoshi over to where we are, which if it's not obvious because the Great Wall of China is here, we're clearly in China, and there's only one city in China in this game, and that's Beijing. There is something I do like about the pattern of this game. In fact, I also really like this game's backgrounds because they're actually pretty good looking. But one thing I can say I don't like about this game is that Yoshi's sprites are not the best looking. Well, more accurately, the original sprites aren't the best looking. Like when Yoshi's looking across the street to cross it, that just looks weird. Time bonus, I'm not exactly sure how that works for this game. It's probably just how much time you spend in a level and stuff like that. One thing I should mention about this game, though, is that there is a DOS version. And I'll get more into that in a moment, because that's what our city's looking like this time around. Giant skull. First off, one thing I should mention is that this game has a debug menu, which I think when you're on the title screen, you press L, R, select, and start on a second controller, and a debug menu will come up, which has a sound test, modifier for like which level the house you start on, and probably the best thing in the debug menu, a show loot option, which will make it so that when you're on screen with Koopa Troopas, if it has an artifact like that one just did, it will show it on their sprite. Which is so useful. And I think the Koopas will also be glowing or blinking on the world map when you do that. Also, one thing I should apologize for, throughout this entire game, I go through the full menu to access the map, but there's actually a fast way by pressing select or R. Either way, time for us to return some stuff. Masai's headdress was stolen, and we have that. So let's pass that in. Let's make sure we have it selected first, because you can't turn it in unless you're having the right one selected. Masai makes a living from cattle, and Masai uses ochre paste to dye their skin red. Baby elephant was that's probably the greatest crime of all. One thing I can say is that this is mostly going to be a playthrough where I more or less bullshit my way through most of it, because this entertainment games are always kind of weird to talk over, hence why there's very few actual LPs of them, unless they're joke ones like a Freddy Fish one. Oh, and yeah, there's an option to run, and I recommend you always be holding down that Y button to run, because otherwise Luigi moves around at such a lackadaisical pace that it's ridiculous. Also, the human skull was stolen. So, sorry guys, we're all skullless. Let's pass it in. Let's see, birthplace of mankind due to that, and the skull is roughly 3 million years old. And now we're done in this place. Now you can estimate just based off the fact that there is baby elephants that we're probably somewhere in Africa, and in particular, we're in Nairobi, Kenya. And now I need to get all the way back to the blue pipe. Admittedly, I do wish it was one of those things that the moment you brought Yoshi to the map, to the right area, and you had all the items turned in, it would just take you right to where the blue pipe is. But I can understand maybe want to get a bit more information or such. From now on, my time bonus is going to be absolute crap, and I think passwords might depend on your actual score. And now it's time for our fourth map of the 15. I'm actually trying to remember which one this is. Okay, I remember which one this is, because this is actually my favorite song in the game. Let's take a look at what our map's looking like. Gee, that thing in the bottom left doesn't look familiar at all. If it's not obvious just based off that was the Kremlin. We're actually in Moscow, Russia. And this is my favorite song in the game. Now, anyway, I was talking about the DOS version earlier. The DOS version is interesting because of how different it is in comparison. It's still the same basic concept, but the graphics are entirely different. There's voice acting for all the characters in it. And for some reason, Mario has 2 accents. And it's also the inspiration for the Luigi meme because of what Luigi's sprite looks like in that. And it's honestly kind of funny. Overall, it's not a very remarkable game in either instance, but that's a thing. It's also one of the few Mario games that's like completely licensed by Nintendo that's not on one of their own consoles. Which, rare to say the least. Either way, we got all 3 artifacts. Let's start passing these in. St. Basil's Cathedral, the dome was stolen. Alright, I should mention basically in every single case, you can get all the information you need for the questions from the Information Center's little pamphlet itself. Usually, they'll just hint at, the citizens will usually just hint at where it belongs. Because you can usually take a good look on the map to see exactly what they're near. Though, mind you, you could be like, me one playthrough this and just gone through it without talking to anyone beforehand, and even then, that doesn't really lengthen the game by much. I think it was only like an hour longer. Mind you, that run was also in like 2005. Now that reminds me, speaking of runs, I should see what a speed run's like for Mario's Missing. I'd estimate probably 20 minutes long, maybe 30? Alright, speedrun.com. 100% is an hour 44. Any percent, 26 minutes. Wow. That's quite the disparity. I would guess the 100% goes for not only all the artifacts and such, obviously, like you have to, but it probably goes for all of the hints from everyone, too. Which I'm going to guess it can lengthen up gameplay quite a bit. Mind you, if there's any game I can see someone speedrunning, Mario's Missing is not a common one. Now I look at it, I just realized, I thought only the Mario and Luigi sprites were ripped right out of Mario World, as well as the Pokey and Koopa sprites, but no, the Peach sprites basically just ripped right out of World as well and edited. Huh. It's like I expected effort in this. Though actually, I talked about earlier how it was developed by Radical Entertainment. This game was also published by 2 people, or 2 groups. The Software Toolworks and Mindscape. Oh yes, one of my favorite songs in the game. If you look right in the top left, you can actually get a good guess of where we are if you're familiar with the United States geography at all. But I love this track. It's the suitable amount of jazzy and just kind of calm, and it's nice and relaxing. Either way, let me go into those other 2 companies. Software Toolworks. They published this. Let's see what they developed. Mario's early years, Fun with Letters, Fun with Numbers. Oh. Ugh. Star Wars Chess. Okay, so they've done exactly 1.5 games of note. Mindscape Incorporated probably has done similar things if I had to guess. Wow. A lot of, like, bad Wii games. Deal or No Deal, The Banker's Back. The first Pets game was on Game Boy Color? Chess Master stuff, Warhammer, Dark Omen. Lego Island! I actually played that a lot when I was a kid. Huh. Now I'm actually kind of happy because I remembered that game was a thing. Either way, we need to start passing in items. If the name Transamerica Pyramid isn't obvious, we are in the United States. As well as me mentioning it earlier. There's only 2 locations in the United States on the Yoshi map, so you have a 50-50 chance of sending Yoshi to the right place. Although there actually isn't a punishment for sending Yoshi to the wrong place, you just have to load back up the globulator and move him. In my early playthroughs, which means I've sadly played this game more than once, I would just randomly move Yoshi around in the general area to try and find where he was, because I obviously didn't know as much stuff about the world as I do now back then. Oh, wow! Mindscape worked on the first Wing Commander. Huh, that's actually something of note. I'm kind of surprised by that. Indiana Jones and the Lost Kingdom, Wing Commander Secret Missions, Rayman Designer. Huh, that's scattered release stuff. Wow. Either way, we were just in San Francisco, but now we're done. And that's also the end of the first floor. And at the end of each of the floors, we have a bit of a boss fight against one of the Koopalings, in this case, Ludwig. However, I call them boss fights loosely because nothing in this game can damage Luigi. It's just a jumping trial. Jump on any of the Koopalings 6 times and they will be defeated. They actually can be a bit smart in terms of avoiding you, though, because sometimes when you jump, they'll just reverse their direction to try and get away from you. More or less, though, it's just a war of attrition, because that's it. This game's going to be kind of slow to progress, I admit to that. I do like the song they play when you beat the stage, though. It's kind of beat the boss, rather, because it's a nice little remix of the Mario World level clear theme. Either way, with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we'll be starting off floor 2. See you guys then.